Welcome to the Darkstream, VoxDay, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. Thanks for tuning in. Unauthorized chat is rolling. DLive chat is up and running. I'm going to presume the audio and video is good, but audio and video is good. We have confirmation, and the super chats are live. So thanks again for tuning in. Also, thanks to all the new subscribers. Yesterday, I said that if we got 10 premium and 25 basic subscribers, then I would do a extended Darkstream going into a detailed review of the CSIS 24 repetition war game of the invasion of Taiwan. And the response was excellent, more than twice what was required. And so I am currently on, I think, page 82 on my initial read through. And I've also reached out to one of the designers to see if I can get a copy of the rules. And I have to say that I'm much more favorably impressed with the work that they did in putting it together than I am in the way that the media described it in the various articles about this. This is not a surprise. You know, game designers are historically some of the most intelligent people out there. Reporters, not so much. And so it's not surprising that the way that the media covered the simulations tended to make me suspect that there were some pretty major factors left out. In fact, some of the factors that you would have thought were left out were actually at least partially included. Other factors that were left out, it's openly admitted that they're left out, and they explain why. Given the heavier than expected interest in the subject, I'm also going to add I'll probably actually do a second review as well of the CNAS war game, which was a slightly different focus, same topic. And the interesting thing that I learned while digging into it is that CSIS is currently doing another set of simulations. They're designing it right now to simulate a potential blockade. So, which is exactly what they should be doing. You know, I think it's going to be very interesting to compare the results of the blockade simulations to the invasion simulations, because as you know, although I do expect China to open up some sort of front in the next 2 to 3 years, possibly sooner, but within the next 3 years, I don't think that they're going to have to invade Taiwan. But we'll see about that. Ironworker Bear says, when can we expect more Midnight's War? There's a lot of it coming. They're lettering issue 6. I think it's actually lettered. I need to go over it to finish going over it to make sure that everything's correct with the lettering. And then the omnibus will go out to all of the backers. And we also have, I think, 4 of the 6 issues of Night Streets done already. So, when exactly the ArcToons production team is going to get it out on ArcToons, I don't know. But I do know that the Chinese version is coming soon. They call me Cordell, sends a super chat. Thank you. He says, gotta go for Vox over the Big Bear. It's not a competition. We are all winners here. We are all crushing here. Which leads us to the topic at hand, and that is how to survive, or I shouldn't say how to survive, surviving the media extinction event. If you've read the blog, then you know what I'm talking about. I have to say that I was really impressed with the analysis by Clay Travis. He's a guy who knows that space, lives in that space. He's into the sports media space the way that I used to be into computer games and development. It's all he really cared about. He happened to have fantastic success with Outkick the Coverage, and then he sold it to Fox or whoever he sold it to. I think Fox. But anyhow, made a fortune, and he's still able to do what he wants to do. I think that he's probably pleased with his decision to sell out, although maybe not so much if he got stock rather than cash, because, and you can read my take on it, but what I really encourage you to do is read his article. It's a very long article, but it's a very important article, and because he connects several dots that most people would not be capable of connecting. And so specifically what he goes into is the combination of the net effect of cord cutting, which has seen the 100 million cable subscribers drop to 70 million cable subscribers over the last, whatever it's been. But what we're now seeing is we're seeing the cable companies getting rid of ESPN. They're not paying the ESPN tax anymore. Comcast screwed things up for a lot of football fans because they cut ESPN right before the start of the college football season. That's 15 million more people that have effectively virtually cut the cord, not of their own accord, but now you're looking at, you had 100 million, and now you're suddenly down to 55 million. And the reason that this is significant is that all of the inflation of sporting salaries and the massive amounts of money that is washing through the media companies is the result of free riders. Or actually, that's really backwards, to be honest. The sports companies are free riders on the cable infrastructure. So ESPN was able to demand as much as $6 per subscriber from some of the cable companies. Now, that's absurd. That's absolutely absurd, because the vast majority of people were not signing up for ESPN. In fact, Clay Travis illustrates the problem very, very clearly. The NFL is the single biggest television product. If you look at all of the ratings, all the top rated shows, most viewed shows, etc., it's basically 1 through 25 NFL. It's true. Sam says ESPN had a Shapiro deal where they had to get taken along with the other networks. That's right. What he's referring to there is when Ben Shapiro first got syndicated, nobody read his column. But his column appeared everywhere because Creators Syndicate paired it together with more popular columnists and said, if you want this one, you have to take that one. Can you imagine how many places would have run my column if Universal Press Syndicate had done that with me and Ann Coulter? I even told them that they should. I said, the only way you're going to get, you're only going to be selling Ann because any editor in their right mind who needs that one right-wing columnist is going to take Ann Coulter. Of course they are. But, UPS was the more elite, higher end syndicate, and they didn't do that. They were the syndicate of William F. Buckley. And, so it was not a surprise when I think they managed to place, what, 2 columns? It was just a complete disaster. Anyhow, so a free rider is somebody who benefits from the money that's being paid to somebody else. And so that's what these media companies, especially the sports media companies, have been doing, because they were the more desirable selections. You know, whenever a cable company didn't want to carry them, didn't want to pay the tax, they would get people whipped up in a frenzy and contacting them. And of course, these companies are used to caving to a relatively small number of people. You know, if you could get 200 people in a city calling the cable company, they would usually knuckle under, right? So the problem is that the vast majority of people who were willing to pay for cable would not, if given the choice, actually pay for these sports networks as an a la carte option. And that's what streaming is. Streaming is fundamentally a la carte. You know, Cordell talks about going for Vox over the Big Bear right here. You know, he's making his choice. He can choose. You know, even on unauthorized. You want to watch Big Bear Live, you want to watch Vox Live, it's up to you. We're not forcing anybody to watch anything. And so when you actually look at the math of what people are willing to pay for, and you know, Clay points out how currently, or at their peak, they were making about roughly $10 billion a year. ESPN was making about $10 billion a year from the ESPN tax plus whatever the small amount of advertising revenue that they got, which is relatively small. So they used that money to acquire sports rights, and they drove the price higher and higher and higher. And it's so high now that ESPN alone is already committed to spending $45 billion through 2027. Think about that. They've got to spend $45 billion just to have the rights to televise this stuff. I mean, this is much more expensive, than making movies. Think about how many movies they could make for $45 billion, right? On the other hand, sports provides a lot of content, and it's very valuable content. So the $45 billion over 2020, through 2027, that's doable if you're bringing in $10 billion a year. Now, obviously, they must be planning to bring in more than $10 billion a year. Otherwise, they wouldn't have committed, more than $10 billion a year for the rights, correct? But here's the problem. Going a la carte reduces that 100 million, which thanks to cord cutting is now 70 million, which thanks to Comcast is now 55 million. But the number of people who are actually willing to pay the going rate for a streaming type service, a dedicated a la carte option, is 3 million. That's how many subscribers the Sunday Ticket has. So if you're willing to pay, the number of people willing to pay independently for the NFL is about 3 million. Now, this is just a rough estimate, but I assume that the NFL is much bigger than all other sports. For the sake of argument, and just because I don't have the time or the inclination to bother working out these specific details, let's assume that all the other sports combined have roughly the same popularity as the NFL. So you got 3 million willing to pay for the NFL, 3 million willing to pay for cycling and basketball and hockey and soccer and everything else, right? But you have to keep in mind that the other sports don't bring in the same kind of revenue that the NFL does. You know, if you look at the cost of the NFL Sunday ticket's about $300. The cost of following a Major League Baseball team for an entire year is $110. I think to get the entire league, the MLB thing is like 130, something like that. So if you add all those things, if you do the math, if you put the 3 million times the 300, the 3 million times the 110, you end up with a number that is suspiciously close to, it's basically 88% of the revenue is gone. Now, they're not there already. You know, it's not going to go from 70 million down to 6 million, all paid a la carte. That's not going to happen overnight. On the other hand, the collapse is happening faster and faster. It's picking up speed. 2014 was the peak. So it has dropped, what? In 10 years, it has declined 30%. But thanks to Comcast cutting its subscribers' cords, it just went from 70 to 55 in a week. So the drop from 55 to 6 million is probably going to happen faster than the drop from 100 million to 70 million. And it doesn't have to drop to that point. It doesn't have to get to that point for them to get in trouble, because they already can't afford to pay the $45 billion in sports rights that they're due to pay. You know, so why do we call this a media extinction event? Because there aren't very many media companies. There's like 5. You know, 5 that count, because they all, you know, Disney owns ESPN and owns various studios, et cetera, all that sort of thing. And it's the popularity of, first of all, it's the popularity of sports that's keeping this stuff going, but the same concept applies to everything. You know, obviously, in the world of political news, it's a tiny fraction of that. But there's still a free rider on the cable subscriptions. Maybe they're not getting the $6 of ESPN, maybe they're getting 25 cents, but that's still the major part of their revenue. And that revenue is actively going away. Cordell sends another super chat. Thank you. He says, what's the gay American empire going to do when the circuses start collapsing and being entertaining? Well, I don't know what they're going to do, because you know, they've got their hands full already. You know, they're losing Africa, they're losing Europe, and now the circuses are falling apart. So, you know, both bread and circuses are looking in peril. So, but you know, obviously in the next 10 years, what it's going to do is collapse, because it's bad enough when people are entertained. But of course, people are not so entertained anymore, because most of the entertainment being produced is complete crap. You know, so so this is going to have a potential. I mean, if Clay Travis is to be believed, and he's certainly much more of an insider than I am, you know, this is likely to have an absolutely catastrophic effect on pretty much every streaming channel. They're already losing money. Disney's already lost $11 billion on streaming. And that's not talking about the money that they're losing from their free ride or cable status. This is separate. And so they can't make money off streaming because, of course, who is going to pay direct? Who is going to support Disney Plus the way that you guys support unauthorized? We have a community. We communicate directly. I put on the blog, hey, do you want me to look into this? Do you want to see this? 80 people said, yeah, we want that. Go for it. And we respond right away. Hopefully, when I put that presentation together, people say, yeah, this is worth it. We want more things like this. We're adding stuff like the skills channel. That's going to be coming very soon. And I had a discussion today. We're even talking about possibly, as it turns out, we've actually got 3 very experienced strategy game designers. And we're actually thinking about putting together something, something called a war lab. So that could be popular. It could be too esoteric. I don't know. But we're going to try different things, and we're going to, because I think that this is a real opportunity for channels like ours, for other small independent media companies, Gab being an example. People used to look down on the business model. They called it, it's grifting, it's begging, it's et cetera, et cetera. It's absolutely not. It's what Sam calls earning your customer's business. We're not running around cutting deals, making sure that when somebody's paying to watch the cooking channel, that we get a cut, right? That's practically theft. People don't realize it, but that's what it is. There's nothing more straightforward or fair than just saying, look, what do you want? Are you not entertained? Is this what you want? Is that what you want? And then working at providing it. One of the unfortunate things about the Rebels Run debacle, and I suspect one of the reasons why it happened, is because the threat to the media companies has never been more dire. They're going down because of large macroeconomic and technological issues that they can't do anything about. Again, I'm not the one saying this. I agree with it, but this is what, in fact, let me read you a little bit of what Clay says, stuff that I didn't put on the blog per se, but from his article. It's just because I don't know that I really did it justice in terms of the stress that he was putting on some of this. Okay, so billions of dollars in profits float off ESPN each year, enabling all of Disney to flourish. It was the crown jewel of a company, a profit spigot, the Titanic of the cable fleet, but an iceberg loomed ahead. Almost no one saw it coming. And then he says, this is a massive media story, one of the biggest of our lives. It's not just ESPN. ESPN just stands to lose the most because it had the most lucrative business model in cable. It's all of the cable and satellite bundle. The entire cable neighborhood is on fire. Whether you're a star athlete or just a fan, if you care who wins games or simply enjoy watching those games, we're all about to have to pay a ton more for that privilege. Put simply, everyone is fucked, including potentially everyone in all of media, not just those of us in sports media. Because the golden cable cash spigot has suddenly run out of coins, and if sports collapses, the entire cable bundle may collapse with it. And he actually ends with a really rather nice bit of writing. He says, again, it's not just sports, it's all of cable. I like the cable and satellite bundle. You probably did too. And I like the mall too. I enjoyed going there, getting a pretzel in the food court, buying a new pair of jeans. I went to my local mall recently, the one I grew up going to, the one I used to have a job at the local American Eagle, but the anchor tenants are all gone. The parking lot was empty. Most of the stores were vacant. The bustle and hubbub was all gone, almost no one was there. It was a ghost town. And he's making the comparison between ESPN and the anchor tenant at the mall. For cable, for the media, ESPN's the anchor tenant. When the anchor tenant leaves, the mall dies. And that's what's coming for the mainstream media. And what that means is that it's a fantastic opportunity for Unauthorized, for Archaven, for Gab, for all these companies that were not able, that were denied permission to play in the world of mainstream media. Ironically, just like the US and European sanctions making Russia stronger, all the sanctions made the Russian economy stronger and independent. In the same way, being demonetized, being deplatformed, all those things that they tried to do to strangle us has not only made us stronger, it's made us independent. And being independent is going to be necessary. Even Netflix doesn't make much money, if any. Netflix is propped up because of its stock price. But, and so that's why I think it's a really good time for people to get more involved with these things, whether it's as a volunteer, whether it's as a backer or supporter or whatever. This is the time to gain ground on the mainstream. And just like in the 30s, the companies that were smart enough and agile enough and tough enough to survive the 30s, those are the companies that became the dominant companies of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so when you look at the opportunity that we have for us, as an organization, as a community, it's absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely exciting. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean it's going to be fun, but this is why we intentionally do two things that are a little bit odd. Number one, we have a number of $5 subscriptions. We used to joke that as a cult, it's very affordable, right? But the reason for that is that we want people to be able to stay a part of the community. Jay Bila says, UATV News one step closer. Definitely. Right now we're working on some other things. We need to get Castalia Classics rolling. That's the guy who's going to be running that. He's been waiting for a year now to get that rolling. So we need to get that going. What we're doing right now, literally today and yesterday, is we're getting the European infrastructure of Unauthorized, which is going to also encompass some of the other projects. But we're getting all of that set up at the data center. It's already installed. It's already the hardware is already running. The correct software is already getting getting up installed and updated. I'll let you know when it's running. Hopefully, it's going to be noticeable by improving these sorts of things. Dan in Georgia says replacing Drudge would be great too. We did try that, with Infogalactic News. Unfortunately, the volunteers who were running that ran out of steam. That's that's something to keep. It's important to keep in mind. When I say that we're doing this, when I say that these are community efforts, I mean it. People say we should do something, so we put it together, but if you don't use it, if you don't use the infrastructure, then it's not going to grow. It's like if we created unauthorized, but Big Bear and the Legend and the Professor and Big Bear didn't put any videos up, what good would it do? Right? Dan in Georgia says, I'd pay a few bucks a month to keep that going. It's not that's the thing. It's not about the money. It's about the volunteers. It's about the people that say, I want to make a difference and are willing to do it. Whether you realize it or not, I don't get paid for most of the things that I do. I'm not saying I don't get paid for anything, but a lot of the stuff that we do, that I spend a lot of time on, I just don't, because I don't think that I don't really want anything, and I don't really need anything, and so I'd much rather have, a new set of servers here or there. I'd much rather have new opportunities, new projects, new things being built. When we do for example, when we do a crowdfund for a comic, we throw pretty much every dime that comes in at the artist. Think about it. Ethan Van Sciver raises $500,000, right? And this is not a criticism. I'm just pointing out the fact that he produces 48 pages, right? We did the Midnight's War, raised, 180,000 or whatever it is. Maybe it was 80,000. I don't remember offhand. But the point is that we're producing 18 issues with that? Believe me, you can't do that. A regular Marvel, DC, even Boom, Dark Horse type operation can't do that, because we have the volunteers, because we have the commitment, because we have the community. Swedish Trash Panda says, with all the trash games, when is the Castelia Game Studio starting? Well, probably not anytime soon, because we've made 2 abortive efforts to get things on that front going, and the volunteers have not proven to have had the stamina that some of the other projects have. I'll give you an example. I wrote my column for 12 years. I didn't get paid for that. I didn't ask to get paid for it. They were willing to pay, but I wasn't interested. The blog got started in 2003, and there was absolutely no attempt at any monetizing of any form for at least 10 years and maybe like 14. I don't really recall. All the stuff that came out of that, ironically, whether it was Castalia, Archaven, unauthorized, all the stuff that came out of that was because of the groundwork of volunteering. Every single person who is an employee started as a volunteer. You know, and ironically, it's always kind of funny because most people are actually more effective as volunteers than they are as full-time employees. I've never quite understood that, but it's true. It's observable. It doesn't mean that you it doesn't mean you can say, hey, you know what, you're better as a volunteer, just go back to volunteering. You know, usually it's because they get to the point where they're like, look, I really want to do this full time, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. Just the reality, I guess. But the key is, just like with the skills channel, you know, with the skills channel, it might be amazing. We might have 500 skills videos up there within a month. And it could end up becoming incredibly popular. We might suddenly start bringing in, you know, large amounts of subscriptions of people who are primarily subscribing to unauthorized just to see that. Or, you know, there might be 10 videos uploaded over 6 months. We won't ever bother, you know, even launching a subscription for it because there's no real interest in it. I mean, you don't know, you have to try. You just have to try these things. And I'm not faulting the volunteers either, because the volunteers can't possibly know what their real level of interest is. You know? Yeah, let's get rid of this guy babbling here. I don't know what he's going on about. So anyhow, but this is a great time for the independents, and you know, watch and pay attention for what Travis is describing starting to happen, because you know, that'll give us some kind of time frame as to when we can expect to see these things happening. You know, we've already heard rumors about Bob Iger trying to part out Disney, and it's not a surprise. But you know, no one's going to buy ESPN. You know, why not just bid yourself on the sports rights down the road, right? So anyhow, that's all I've got for tonight. This is a short one because I've got a lot to do tomorrow. But I hope to stream at some point this weekend, and I will also, I'm hoping to get the A Sea of Skulls out to the early readers this weekend. Just a quick question. John says, hey Vox, how did you go with the subscription numbers? We got twice as many as we asked for, and I am actively reading the CSIS 165 page report as we go. But Big Bear sends a super chat. Thank you. He says, thanks Vox. Unauthorized has been consistently valuable. Well, thank you, But Big Bear, and hopefully we're going to be able to increase the value, because we need to be increasing the value if we want to bring in the people who are abandoning the mainstream. So John says he was one of them. Thank you, John. Anthony says Alt Hero is killing it. Yeah, we'll have more coming soon, and in fact, you're gonna be able to buy Alt Hero, the omnibus, from the Archaven store probably this weekend. So we're adding that to the books that we can ship directly. So, well, thanks everybody, and we will see you sometime this weekend on Vox Day. This is the Darkstream.